Hey there, gamer. Turn-based RPGs are back with Child of Light by Ubisoft. And the game throws some interesting twists on the let's take turns hitting each other genre formula. Combine that with a beautiful art style, fun whimsical characters, and a $15 price point, and Child of Light is a must-have.
Very interesting, Private, but what, pray tell, is the game about?
Good question. Child of Light is about a young girl named Aurora. Okay, walked right into that one. Aurora is the daughter of an Austrian duke, and in classic fairy tale fashion, her mom is dead, and her stepmom is your archetypal homicidal matriarch.
Dude sure can pick 'em.
And surprise, surprise, one day the little moppet finds herself at death's door. But instead of the pearly gates, Aurora finds herself in the magical land of Narnia. I mean Lemuria, which is under the tyrannical rule of the Dark Queen Umbra.
The Latin word for shadow. Seriously?
Personality-wise, Aurora is kind of a laundry list of virtues. She's kind, she's clever, she's supportive, she's brave, but she does have moments of vulnerability. She feels sad and helpless, but ultimately prevails and is great at carrying the story. In combat, Aurora is probably the most versatile and powerful party member. She has both physical and magical attacks that deal light-based damage.
Oh, of course.
Light does more damage against dark creatures, and most monsters in the game fall into that category. She also sports a pair of fairy wings that let her easily navigate the game's many beautiful environments. Aurora's constant companion throughout the game is a glowing elemental named Igniculus, and this little guy really impacts gameplay by lighting up dark areas, blinding enemies in combat, and healing the party. Personality-wise, he walks a thin line between wide-eyed innocent and spunky sidekick. Aurora is joined in her adventure by a number of supporting characters. There's a brother and sister jester team of Rubella and Tristis. Both are supporting characters. Rubella is a white mage and can cast healing spells, while Tristis can buff by increasing attack speed. Rubella's a bit of a blank personality-wise, but she has a fun running gag of being the only character in the game who can't manage to speak in rhyme.
Wait, everyone speaks in rhyme?
Indeed, Sergeant, all the time. Everyone in Lemuria loves to rhyme. Okay, I'll stop now. Tristis, on the other hand, is a sad, depressed clown who got fired from the circus.
Probably for the bad poetry and always smelling like coffee and cigarettes.
He's fun in an Eeyore sort of way. The black mage of the team is Finn. This wizard dishes out magical damage in an exciting variety of flavors, like fire, water, and lightning. Certain types of color-coded enemies are affected by and resistant to certain types of elemental damage.
So it's like Pokemon, but not.
Pretty much, yeah. Now don't let his awesome ZZ Top beard fool you. Finn is only 13 years old, and a bit of a crybaby, but it actually makes him sympathetic and, dare I say, huggable.
You won't dare if you know what's good for you.
And during his time with Aurora, Finn becomes a brave and heroic little dude. Debuffing and physical combat damage are provided by Robert. He's a scheming capitalist mouse. Granted, he's no repeat, but he'll do. Personality-wise, he's cool in a Quark sort of way, but I never really found much of a use for him. My go-to damage dealer was Onegus, who's a friggin' beast.
Quite literally.
Oh, that is so untrue. He's an honorable warrior from a bad tribe that he betrayed to save, and all it took was willing service to the evil queen.
Inquisling.
But he betrayed her, and it's better than it sounds.
It could hardly be worse.
Okay, moving on. Another buffer is Gen. She's a plant thing, and a sorcerer with a harp. That's neat. She shows up really late in the game, and her powers aren't particularly useful. She just increases the rate you attack at and slows enemies down. A lot of characters do that, actually. Finally, Aurora's sister Nora provides damage, buffing, and debuffing, and she's really good at all three. Well, actually, I think Nora is Aurora's stepsister, but they seem like they have a really good relationship. This also applies to Aurora's other sister, Cordelia. Let's say I really wanted more details and development on this relationship, as it's the most interesting and unique spin on a fairy tale I've seen in a long time, but it's not expanded on very well. So that's our heroes. Now let's look at our villain. Queen Umbra is a big bad fantasy mashup of evil royalty, with a suite of magical superpowers to smite poor little Aurora with. And she even turns into a dragon a la Maleficent. But she's a good omnipresent threat and easily the most challenging fight of the game. Now, the only side characters of note are Aurora's father. He's a really nice guy. And that's about it. And the Forest Lady. She's a magical mentor figure who shows up to start Aurora on her quest, and then again when Aurora's at her lowest point. Now, let's talk about the story. As much as I like the story, and I do like the story, it has a couple of problems. The one which is most constantly in your face is the dialogue. Everyone speaks in cutesy rhymes, it's an aggressively unnecessary gimmick, and it does get annoying. But it's by no means a deal breaker. The other big problem is the story will just bring up concepts and then never explain them. So Narnia was once ruled by the super virtuous good queen called the Queen of Light, cause what else would she be called? And one day she up and disappears and they never explain why. You can infer what happened, but the details are irritatingly fuzzy. Aurora's daddy dearest falls ill, but is it heartache over the loss of Aurora? Or did Umbra dump a rat poison in his Lucky Charms? Who are Cordelia and Nora to Aurora? They have to be her stepsisters, but Aurora reacts to them like she's known them for years. Aurora grows up as she increases in power, and her adult form...
Hardly. I doubt she's older than 16.
Fine, Mr. Technical. The point is, grown Aurora really resembles Nora and Cordelia, and both of them look more like Aurora's mother than they look like the wicked stepmother.
That's probably just art style.
We'll get to that. But first, what's a game without gameplay?
A television show or movie.
Child of Light is a turn-based RPG. In combat, the action order is determined by a meter at the bottom of the screen. At a certain point on the meter, the character enters the casting phase. If they're attacked during this phase, the action they selected is interrupted and they have to go further back on the meter. Typically, the more powerful an action is, the longer it takes. And certain characters are faster than others. Aurora is on the slow side, while Robert and Rubella are fast as hell. You can also throw a monkey wrench into your enemy's works by using Igniculus to blind the bad guys and slow their turns down. The little spotlight can also heal your party members. Now you can do this when choosing an action which pauses the game, but there is a finite amount of time you can use Igniculus's light ability. But every arena has magical plants that give you more health, mana, and light. Now you will need to swap out party members, depending on what you're fighting. Some enemies have elemental weaknesses, others can only be hurt by physical damage. Although sometimes it can be kind of hard to tell what is going to damage a given monstrosity. Also, most of your characters have buffing and debuffing abilities that increase your speed or slow down or even stop the enemies. But be careful because the baddies can do that too. Fortunately, Child of Light doesn't have any really cheap status effect Palooza monsters that will stun lock the entire party.
What do you mean by party? There are only two on screen at once.
That's true. And having only 2 party members out at once can kind of limit your strategies in combat. You'll also have a bunch of items to help you out in battle. You know, healing potions, magic potions, Phoenix Down, that sort of stuff. The other half of Child of Light's gameplay is centered around exploration. The world of Lemuria is large and beautiful, with all kinds of hidden nooks and crannies to explore for hidden treasure, and secret bosses to fight. Aurora gets the ability to fly pretty much out of the gate, and there are no strings attached. She can stay airborne indefinitely, and there's no fall damage. But there are hazards you need to fly around, and strong winds to deal with. In addition to the main quest, there are some fun side quests. You can take them on in any order, but they're not really anything more than a distraction. They're basically all just variations on go talk to this guy, or go and kill all the monsters. The most fun one involves trading various stuff with folks around the kingdom, and getting progressively more valuable things. Child of Light also has a very streamlined equipment and upgrade system.
Read dumbed down.
No, it's really well done. There are these things called ocula, basically magic gemstones, that give your character upgrades to damage, armor, and other helpful passive abilities, depending on which of 3 slots you put them in. Now, if you've played any number of RPGs, you'll know that you'll quickly become loaded down with subpar equipment. The ocula don't really work that way. Throughout your adventure, you'll come across various sizes and colors, like small rubies, medium sapphires, that sort of thing. And you can combine them to make larger and different types, like topaz and amethyst. Of course, the larger the ocula, the better bonus you get out of it. Now, like any good RPG, you're going to be leveling up, and gaining new abilities. Each character has 3 skill paths, Calling them trees would be a little too generous, as they're about as restrictive as a Final Fantasy XIII level, and you really don't have much in the way of choice as to deciding what your character can be. Rubella will always be your white mage, Aurora will always be your combat caster, and Onegas will always be a dang killing machine. And you're pretty much going to be maxed out everywhere by the end anyway. Finally, let's look at the art of Child of Light. It's pretty. Like, super pretty. Everything is done in this hand-painted art style. The environments are nice and varied, like big spooky forest, ruined castle, cave, seacoast. But it all works well together and feels like part of the same world. The characters are also well designed, but the in-game characters don't look quite as good as their character portraits, unfortunately. But there are a lot of nice touches, like Aurora's hair blowing in the breeze. Finally, the enemies are well designed and you can tell what most of them are all about at a glance. But some of them are friggin' obtuse. Like what mummified Bebop is supposed to be weak against, I have no idea. Okay, now it's time to break down the good and the bad in Child of Light. On the good side, Aurora is a strong, brave heroine, and she's joined in her adventure by a likable set of fun companions, with diverse and useful abilities. The core gameplay mechanic of flight is well implemented, and you'll have hours of fun exploring the beautiful world of Lemuria. And the combat is streamlined and polished. On the downside, the story can be a bit predictable at times. Certain characters need a lot more development in my opinion, and you just don't have the kind of character options that you're used to in the bigger RPGs. But those shadows don't dim this light much, so I give Child of Light a 4.5 out of 5. If you're interested in more reviews of anime, movies, TV shows, comic books, and video games, check out my channel on YouTube at StupidPrivate913, and find my Facebook and Deviantart pages for video updates and more. Thank you for watching.
Hey kids, today's show is brought to you by the letter 4 and the number potato! I'm a stupid private.